evening, good evening, good evening. So, I wanted to go live and talk about a super important topic. I've just been inspired so much. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go live and talk about it. If you've been following our stories, or rather, if you've not been following our stories, right, head over to our stories and make sure that you connect with us on stories, because on stories, we share reality of life, like on the go, stuff like that. So we've been posting a lot of stories recently, just sharing kind of what's been going on day to day, right? And some of you will know, if you've been following me on stories, Mary and I, you know that yesterday I was invited to a men's retreat. So I was thinking to myself, men's retreat, I don't know, man, I don't know if I should be getting to this, but I thought, you know what, the guy who invited me, who I love, this guy called Marvin Harrison. If you don't know him, you should check him out at Dope Like That. So anyway, he invited me with some other incredible dads. I thought, you know what, I posted on the stories and asked you guys, should I go to this thing? And some of you guys said, in fact, the overwhelming majority of you said, you should absolutely go. 91% of you said go. So I went off to this men's retreat, and do you know what? It completely blew my mind. Yeah? That looks amazing. All right. Off we go, hiking. To the point where I've come back today, and I've just written some notes down, and I wanted to just talk about this concept of know thyself, you know? Because oftentimes we think we know ourselves, but we really don't, you know? And the reason why this is important, you're probably thinking, what, Ken, what's this got to do with, like, you guys are a personal finance channel, you talk about money, what's this got to do with it? It's got everything to do with it, everything. Because if you don't know thyself, you don't know anything. Actually, you actually don't go anywhere in life. But if you know yourself pretty well, then you make intentional decisions about your life. And I've been challenged a lot about this whole journey of getting to know myself, all through our financial journeys, and even till today, I'm still like exploring, getting to know myself, pushing myself outside my comfort zone, trying new things. Same as Mary as well. And this men's retreat was exactly what I needed, to be honest. Although I wasn't quite sure if I should go, but going has completely just opened up my mind to a different aspect of my journey. I wanted to share it with you guys because I think you're going to walk away today just asking yourselves important questions about yourselves, your lives, and with some form of a framework to help you better understand your strengths and your weaknesses and stuff like that. Went off to this men's retreat, which was in East London. It was fantastic. And we all met up, there were about 6 of us. And we all started, and the guy who hosted us, honestly, incredible guy, had the food, he had some drinks, he had some nibbles, everything was set. Oh no!
Come on. There you go.
All right, you try it.
There we go. Yeah. Oh.
Come on! Come on, Marv! Let's do it! Way!
That's a real jump.
This was last night. Literally, I got there at 9 p.m. In the garden, there's like, you know, like a kind of a fireplace type thing where they were trying to get it all revived and cooking and stuff. And it was amazing to walk in. There was burgers, there was all this stuff. There was salmon, and I thought, wow, this is exactly what I needed. And the vibes were great. And we were just chatting and getting to know. And oftentimes, the reason I mention this, right, is it's made me realize that there's such an importance of having a brotherhood or having a sisterhood. By that, I mean, if you're a woman watching this right now, you should have a group of girls or women that you meet and just have your thing. And if you're a guy watching this, you should have a group of guys who you meet and just have your thing and just connect on that level. And I didn't really take this as importantly because we've all been away with, you know, the pandemic and so on, we've been locked away. And for me, like, this is my first time ever having this level of intimacy. And now that word for you guys, probably thinking, what? Intimacy? Let me explain myself. Because oftentimes that word intimacy is one that we associate with something else. Yeah. We associate that with like getting to know our other half or our boyfriends or girlfriends or whoever, or significant partner. But that word means so much. And this retreat really just opened my eyes so much because this word intimacy has so much to do with getting to know thyself. So we get in there, right? And we having drinks, chatting, honestly, the vibes, man. Woo! The vibes. I was absolutely just loving the vibes. And then we went off in the evening. It must be around 10 o'clock. We started watching Dave Chappelle and his new series on Netflix. Then after that, we watched Def Jam comedy. I think 25th anniversary Def Jam. If you've not seen those things, go and watch them. They're quite cool to watch. And then we kind of kept chatting, and it was so good. Fell asleep. I fell asleep on the sofa bed. All the other guys fell asleep in different rooms of the house. Then we woke up in the morning, had breakfast, and then as we were having breakfast, the real conversations began. And this is where you guys come in, okay? So that word intimacy now, let me just unpack it and why it relates to know thyself, which is very important, as I mentioned, on the journey towards achieving significant life goals, whether it's for financial independence, whether it's for your career and so on. Getting to know thyself and having the relevant support on the journey is critical. Okay, so this concept of knowing thyself is a lot about getting to know who you are. I want to ask you, where do you think you get this from in your life right now? Okay, so intimacy type number one is physical intimacy, right? So an explanation of this is obviously, people talk about, people relate this to sex, but beyond that, hugs and cuddles and stuff like that. Where do you get your levels of physical intimacy from? So this is the exercise we were doing as guys, right? And we were all writing our answers down. So right now, if you can, just write your answers down because trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. So where do you get your perceived levels of physical intimacy from? That sort of stuff. That's number one. Number two is emotional intimacy. Yeah. Here I'm talking about a safe space for you to cry, for you to feel inward emotions. And, who would you call? And I know this is going to sound weird, right? But as guys, or as women, even particularly guys, we just don't even talk about emotions. And for me, being in this environment was actually so needed, So right for me, where do you get your emotional intimacy from? That safe space where you can cry if things aren't going so well, or where you can really explain what's going on in your life without feeling like I've got to do it all myself. Yeah? Or feeling like I'm the brave guy, I've got to do everything myself. But you're able to have that conversation or have that space where you're able to do it. Okay? So Katie just says, I keep emotions to myself. You see, this is part of what we're talking about here. Okay? Because this is all part of growth and getting to know ourselves and getting the levels of support that we need, which is very, very important. So that's second one. Third one is intellectual intimacy. Okay, third one is, and what we're talking about here is, where can you go to have that deep conversation intellectually and actually enjoy doing it? So who do you speak to have that intellectual conversation? And actually feel like you're actually sparring and there's no negative competition, but you're actually speaking to people and the vibes are good. Yeah. The fourth one, remember you're writing down who these people are. Who do you go to for these things? The fourth one is creative intimacy. Yeah. And by the way, these are not my ideas, by the way. I've just learned what I'm sharing with you guys from going to a retreat with my friends, Marvin Harrison being one of them, Umar and a bunch of other guys. But we have our own personal answers. But I'm just giving you the framework just so you can also begin to think about how you can apply this to your life, okay? Creative intimacy. What does that mean? It means if you had to create something or start something brand new, like a business or a side hustle or some project, some passion project, who do you go to ignite that idea? Like, who do you go to? Who do you speak to about that? Yeah? So creative intimacy, I'm going to repeat again, is if you had to create something or start something brand new, who do you go to have that conversation, to begin that process of unpacking it without feeling that state of loneliness in your ideas or confusion or feeling that lack of support? Where do you go? Who do you speak to? Who is that person in your life? Do you have anybody who you speak to for that creative intimacy? The fifth one is experiential intimacy. So who can you go to and do dope stuff with? Yeah? Literally, you can call them and they'll be down. You say, look, let's just get a flight. let's fly to, I don't know, Ibiza, because you've got something, you want to explore something, or you want to go on a trip to talk about history, or you want to go on a trip to go and experience, go on the beach or wherever. You want to go and do something that you find enjoyable and have a really positive experience. Who in your life do you get that from? Who's that person who you call? Write the list down, yeah? So under each one of the different forms of intimacy, you're writing down name, name, name. And if you haven't got any names, I want you to just pause and ask yourself why you think you don't have any names. Because I had areas on this, being completely transparent, I had areas on this where I was lacking enough, like, people that I go to, yeah? But I hadn't thought about it from this dimension until I had this really, what I'd call a life-changing, powerful experience of hanging out with other men who happen to be dads as well. Yeah? And the final one is the spiritual intimacy. So by this I'm talking here, who do you connect with like you connect with nature? Yeah? Who can you go with and co-create your vision, that sort of stuff? Yeah? Who is that person? Yeah, in your life. Now, for some of this, you might start to notice a trend. Like, for example, across all of mine, I noticed that my wife was literally across all of them. That's not a bad thing. But if you only got one person, then the question should be, who else should you have in there? You know, where are you seeing certain gaps in your life? Is it in physical intimacy? Is it in emotional intimacy? Comment and tell me. Physical, emotional intimacy, intellectual intimacy, creative intimacy, experiential intimacy, and finally spiritual intimacy. Where are you seeing the gaps in your life? Where are you seeing it? Let's be honest with ourselves, right? Because I don't go live very often, and when I do, like, you better believe I'm here to drop it. Like, I don't like to waste my time or waste anybody's time. So when I go live, you better believe I'm here to share what I believe will be life-changing for you, because it's life-changing for me, okay? So let me know, where do you see those certain gaps in your life? Yeah, because all these elements are elements that actually make up who you think you are over time, okay? So Katie said, I keep everything to myself. Maybe I should try and talk to others. You know, I actually think that's actually important. Heavenly Bake said, intellectual intimacy is minimized due to trust. They said, that's interesting. Trust from whose perspective? Is it you that's not being open enough to trust other people? You know, I don't know. But I think, you know, this is why I think this is actually really, really important, because it really opens up our minds to where we are perhaps letting ourselves down. Like, for example, I could have, yesterday, when I got invited to this men's retreat, I could have just said, you know what? I want to sit at home and watch Netflix. I don't really want to go. I could have just made up some excuse and just went, I just want to chill out and that's it. Yeah? But going and pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, for me, has been absolutely life-changing. Because not only have I grown in kind of just being more open to ask myself these more difficult questions, but at the same time, I've actually made some new friends. Because today, like, I met people who I've never met before, and I've had to just kind of connect with them, you know, chill out in the same room, watch some movies, even sleep in the same house. I'm thinking to myself, wow, like, you know, that required me to kind of really push myself outside of my comfort zone and really just get to know, push the boundaries a bit, as to what levels I truly understand myself and willing to open up to understanding myself. Now, what was so interesting when we asked ourselves these questions was when we then started to talk about our various thoughts. Now, obviously, I'm not going to speak about anyone because it's a private conversation, but what was interesting is talking about it. So if you've got a partner right now, it will really help to go and talk about it. Because I've come home, for example, and I've sat down with my wife, Mary, and we've began to talk about it. And one thing that's come out of this, for Mary and I, is the need to create the right spaces. Yep, the need to create the right spaces in our lives. So, for example, we've now decided that one thing we need to do for sure is begin to diarize specific slots in our diaries to have things like this. For her to go off and have a sisterhood with her friends. For me to go off and have a brotherhood with a bunch of guys. For me to go and have an experience with a friend of mine. Go and travel to Egypt or travel to wherever I want to go. Travel to the Caribbean. Travel wherever and have some experience. For her to do the same. And for Mary and I to do the same. But the key being to create the spaces to make sure that the bits where we see these gaps in our lives, those gaps are being filled by us taking radical action. By us taking that intentional action to make sure that we're not just going on autopilot every week. Every week we're just going. And we think we know who we are. We actually think we know who we are. But in reality, we don't know ourselves as well as we think we do. Okay? Lily said, my hubby passed and my church is virtual, so hugs are reduced. But whenever I run into someone I haven't seen in a while, I get hugs. Okay, I think that's pretty powerful. And I'm really sorry to read what I just read, which is that if I've read that properly, your hubby is no longer with us. I'm really sorry to read that. Really sorry to read that. But I really hope, because this, like, I could go on for quite a while on this topic, but I just wanted to talk about it because, like, when I hear stuff that for me is life-changing, I often ask myself, how could we help other people use the things we're learning to change their lives as well? This is why we do what we do, whether it's running the Humble Penny or Financial Joy Academy. And by the way, speaking of Financial Joy Academy, Mary and I are we're still thinking about it, of creating kind of an FJA brotherhood and an FJA sisterhood, such that we have like separate, apart from our general kind of usual meetups, but having these sisterhood meetups and these brotherhood meetups, because I'm beginning to really appreciate the importance of men meeting with other men, women meeting with other women, and there is just something there, there's just something there that, although you might not be able to articulate, but once you're in that space, something just happens. Like there's just this ignition, something just happens. And I'd highly encourage, whether you are a man watching this right now, whether you're a woman watching this right now, really begin to ask yourself, truly, where is that gap? I've talked about 6 areas. Where do you see that gap in your personal life right now? And do you really understand who you are? Because, like, honestly, unpacking all these areas means that you begin to then ask yourself, how do I get help in these areas? Yeah. If I'm lacking creative intimacy, how do I get that? I mean, to give you an example, I want to be even more practical. I want to tell you some of mine, who I've got in mind, So, physical intimacy is obviously I've got my wife, I've got my kids, I've got my parents. In physical intimacy, in emotional intimacy, again, I've got my wife, I've got my home. Absolutely love my home. There's deep connection to our home. I've got my sisters, I've got my kids as well. Intellectual intimacy, I've got my mastermind. A bunch of people I have in a mastermind that really just push me and challenge me. I've got my wife. I've got 2 friends, really close friends of mine. I've got an online business friend who I just love her vibes, and I speak to her quite a lot. My friend called Sarah, and I've got my friend called Jacques, who, like, I just love. We go to the same church, and like we just connect on a different level, on a business level, and on a spiritual level as well. Creative intimacy, I've got, again, our kids, Mary, some of my friends, my sister, and my mastermind. Experiential intimacy, though, I've only got my wife and my kids and one of my friends. I kind of feel like I'm missing out. There's a lot I'm missing out on. And by the way, those other areas I mentioned, I've got bits that I'm missing there as well. And on spiritual, I have literally just got Mary and maybe once in a while my really good friend Tendai and my good friend Jack. So for me, there are gaps in the all 6 areas. And so a big part of what I'm spending time on now is asking myself, okay, what does this now mean? And how do we now turn this into actionable things that Mary and I can do, such that we continue to grow in knowing ourselves, such that, once we've kind of begin to fill these gaps, we'll start to see huge changes across our lives, whether it's in our relationships, whether it's in our levels of confidence, whether it's in our relationships as parents to our children, whether it's in our relationships with our friends, whether it's in our success of our business and our various platforms, and so on. Okay? Anyway, I hope this has been useful. I hope. If you found this useful, I'd highly recommend just tag someone. who you think might get some value. I really hope that what I share is something that you can walk away with and actually get life-changing value. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you've taken away something. Oh, and by the way, if you've got any questions on the back of this that you'd love for Mary or I to respond to, just post it in the comments. We love to help you guys out and connect with you. So post a comment, we'll give you our thoughts, and we'll come back to you. Okay? Other than that, I'm off to watch a movie, join my wife and kids. The blessings, the blessings, the blessings. Relax and enjoy the rest of my weekend. But beyond that, much love, much love, much love, and we'll speak to you guys soon. All right, take care.